You're now watching Qnews, and here are the top stories for this hour. The Sudanese army announced that its forces had successfully seized control of central Khartoum, the Arab Market, and the presidential palace buildings and the ministries. In a statement, the Sudanese army stated that its forces had completely destroyed the Rapid Support Forces equipment and seized large quantities of its gear and weapons in the mentioned areas. Palestine's permanent representative to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, has called for the full implementation of the three-phase ceasefire agreement on Gaza. Speaking at an emergency UN Security Council session, Mansour urged the international community to act swiftly to end the suffering of civilians in the Gaza Strip. UN Assistant Secretary General for Middle East Affairs Khaled Khayari has described the situation in Gaza as catastrophic. Addressing the UN Security Council, Khayari stressed that humanitarian aid is rapidly depleting due to Israel's continued closure of border crossings. He warned that the resumption of military operations in Gaza further endangers civilian lives. The Israeli government has unanimously approved Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's proposal to dismiss Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar. According to a statement from Netanyahu's office, Bar's term will officially end on April 10, or earlier if a new head of the domestic intelligence agency is appointed. Israeli media reported that some cabinet ministers have requested that the dismissal be moved up to this Sunday, while the government is considering finalizing his departure by next Friday. Russia and Ukraine have announced that their delegations will hold separate talks with U.S. officials in Saudi Arabia next Monday. According to Russian presidential aide Yuri Yoshakov, the upcoming round of Russia-U.S. talks on Ukraine will take place in Riyadh, with the Russian delegation led by Grigory Karasin, chairman of the International Affairs Committee in Russia's upper house, and Sergei Beseda, advisor to the head of Russia's Federal Security Service. Yushakov added that he had a phone conversation with U.S. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz on Wednesday, during which they discussed convening expert groups to explore the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative. The Kremlin confirmed earlier this week that Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to move forward with discussions focused on ensuring the safety of navigation in the Black Sea. European Union leaders have reaffirmed their commitment to supporting Ukraine, but stopped short of approving a proposed €5 billion package for artillery purchases. The call for funding was made during a virtual address by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to EU leaders meeting in Brussels. Ahead of the summit, the bloc's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, urged leaders to match their support for Kiev with concrete actions as U.S. President Donald Trump continues his diplomatic push to end the war, including efforts to re-engage with Russia. Following the meeting, European Council President Antonio Costa expressed confidence that member states would increase their pledges to Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that he will host a meeting of European leaders alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris next Thursday to discuss strengthening Ukraine's defense. The talks will focus on accelerating immediate military support, exploring how a potential ceasefire could be implemented, and outlining long-term plans to reinforce Ukraine's military, including the possible deployment of troops. The initiative comes as a group of Western nations, referred to as the Coalition of the Willing, works on a coordinated support plan to ensure rapid response if a peace deal is reached between Kiev and Moscow. France and the UK are leading efforts to offer a peacekeeping framework and are urging the United States to provide security guarantees to prevent future Russian aggression.
Et au fond, nous avons maintenant une stratégie
Police in Turkey have used water cannons and tear gas to disperse protesters that erupted across the country following the detention of Istanbul's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. Thousands took to the streets in cities including Izmir and Ankara, denouncing what they call the undemocratic arrest of one of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main political rivals. In Izmir, demonstrators were met with water cannons, while in the capital Ankara, police fired tear gas and dummy rounds during clashes with protesters. İmamoğlu was taken into custody on Wednesday, facing charges of graft and aiding a terrorist group. The opposition has condemned the move as a coup attempt, sparking a wave of demonstrations nationwide. The arrest comes amid a wider crackdown on opposition figures, which critics say is politically motivated and aimed at weakening electoral challengers and silencing dissent. A group of 311 Venezuelan nationals returned from Mexico has landed in Caracas on a flight operated by state-owned airline Qnews. The arrival brings the total number of recently returned Venezuelan migrants to 920. The announcement came shortly after the U.S. government, via social media, accused Venezuelan officials of falsely claiming that repatriation flights through Mexico were taking place that day. The flight was arranged through a direct agreement with the Mexican government, though they did not provide further details. And this concludes our top stories for this hour. I'm Halal Hamalawi. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.